students here at UT, and I want to thank you all for being here. We're not allowed to use amplified sound, so bear with us. We're going to have to be shouting a little bit. I'm not really that angry, but I'm going to sound like I am. So thank you for joining us for this extremely important gathering. We're here today to stand against all forms of racism and Islamophobia on our campus, and especially against this ad that was published in the Daily Texan on March 4th of this week. At today's gathering, we hope to rally together as a collective body of concerned students and send a powerful message that such bigotry has no place on our campus or anywhere in the world. We will have some students sharing their thoughts, along with Dr. Snehal Shingavi, and we will end our gathering with a list of demands, a call to action, and some fun chants to send our message. So thanks for all being out here. Let's start off by introducing a student speaker. His name is Ahsan Faraji. He's a senior here. He's a biomedical engineering student. Really awesome guy, really awesome speaker, and he has some words to share with us. So I'm going to hand it off.
Unlike Seth, if I sound angry, it's because I am. This is an outrage. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, in the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. Thank you all for being here. Like many of you, I was shocked and disappointed when I saw the ad on the back page of the Daily Texan. This ad, which promotes the hateful views of the David Horowitz Freedom Center, is eminently problematic and disgusting. It illustrates a worldview, grossly mischaracterizes a religious identity, bastardizes the real story of atrocity from its true origin, and exploits stories of suffering outside of any context for the sole purpose of advancing a political agenda. The ad tries to get away with exploiting isolated individual incidents and the controversial applications of laws. It doesn't tell us about the outpouring support from around Pakistan for Rimsha Masih and the condemnation from Muslim leaders for violence against her. It also doesn't tell us about the work of legal organizations and institutions in Iran suspending Sakina Ashtiani's stoning sentence. How the jump is made between the 6 faces on the ad to the idea of Islamic Apartheid is unclear. We are expected to believe that these discrete incidents have one commonality, that they represent and define Muslims. Horowitz would have us believe that to be Muslim is to be violent, bigoted, and savage. This ad aims to engender a venomous, antagonistic, malevolent, toxic conception of Islam and Muslims. Painting the picture this way has real-life victims, including Muslim women and men in this country who have been victims of the hate crimes and discrimination. But even more disturbing is how this advertisement and its ideology are instrumental in advancing the cause of war and atrocities committed around the world. This type of thinking was used to justify an illogical invasion and occupation of Iraq, and it continues to justify the killing of innocent men and women through drone strikes in Pakistan. The ad also misuses the term apartheid. Apartheid is used to refer to an unjust system of racial segregation and discrimination. It referred to the brutal practices of institutionalized racism in South Africa, and it is used today to refer to the systematic discrimination of Palestinians by the State of Israel. To use this term for these individual incidents in various social contexts is not just a joke. It is a joke. And it is also a sick attempt to trivialize the term and rob it of its meaning.
Speak it, brother. Yeah.
We are here not just to condemn this ad and its ideology, but also to question the decision by the Daily Texan and the Texas student media to run it. As a forum for reasonable dialogue, the Texan should uphold journalistic standards that at the very least exclude hateful, offensive, and bigoted speech. The fact that such standards were not abided by is simply disturbing. But moreover, as a student-run organization, there is a surprising lack of transparency concerning the justification for the publication of the ad, as well as who was responsible. It is still unclear, and we have been given no explanation about whether it was the Daily Texan staff or Texas student media that okayed the ad, and what procedure was followed. The Texan yesterday published dissenting views, but offered no official statement explaining how these ads are selected and why this one was allowed to be published. As students at UT, we demand to know how this was allowed to happen and who was responsible. Furthermore, despite all the outrage directed at the paper, there has been no official apology and no retraction. Simply publishing letters to the editor and a statement by an employee is not enough, absent an official statement of regret. This is a slap in the face to Muslims and all concerned students. The Texas is sending a message that it supports Islamophobia as a legitimate part of the conversation on campus. I'm here to say along with all of you that we will not stand for this. Texas student media, you will see. Texas student media, you will see. Hate will not be accepted on this campus.
Hate will not be accepted on this campus.
TSM, no more hate. You should set the record straight.
TSM, no more hate. You should set the record straight.
TSM, no more hate. You should set the record straight.
TSM, no more hate. You should set the record straight.
Daily Texan, no more hate. You should set the record straight.
Daily Texan, no more hate. You should set the record straight.
Hey, hey, ho, ho. Islamophobia's got to go.
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 Hey, hey, ho, ho.
Islamophobia's got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. Islamophobia's got to go. Ho, ho. Islamophobia's got to go.
Thank you, Hassan, for those great words. I want to invite another guest speaker for today. We have Dr. Snehal Shingavi. He teaches in the English department, and he's written extensively and taught extensively on the topic of Islamophobia. He's been a great voice on campus for the cause of justice. So I want you to invite him. Give a real warm round of applause.
Anything yet, you might not like what I say. No, I think that this is pretty outrageous, but what's actually more outrageous is how long this has been going on at the Daily Texan. Every year, it seems, we come out here to protest another bigoted thing that they publish, and then a series of retractions happen, we're promised changes in policy, and then we get this again. 5 years ago, you might know, Horowitz took out a similar ad in maybe 20 or 30 newspapers across the country called Islamofascism Awareness Week and tried to promulgate this idea that Islam was uniquely a fascistic religion, despite the fact that the only existing fascisms in history have been in Christian nations. The idea that somehow Islam had a uniquely fascistic quality to it. It was only 3 or 4 years ago that there was an ad taken out in the Daily Texan, which implied that Palestinians were not in fact people, that they didn't exist. It was last year that the Daily Texan published an editorial cartoon about Trayvon Martin, which produced an enormous outswelling of opposition on this campus in terms of the racist caricature that happened there. And now we're subjected to this kind of nonsense, which has absolutely nothing to do with an intellectual conversation about anything related to Islam or anything related to violence or justice or anything. The fact that last year, when Gabrielle Gifford's face was shown in crosshairs and there was an outcry about what happened to her and gun violence in this country, and then it's just sort of repeated again casually, and it's only people who care about Islamophobia, not the same voices who should be out here, who care about things like gun violence or caricatures of people who are victims of injustice. It shows, I think, in many ways a tragedy of what has happened in the last 11 or 12 years in this country as Muslims and people who look like Muslims. We remember the Gurudwara in Oak Creek that was attacked as well. People who look like Muslims are subjected to the vilest kinds of bigotry and racism, and it's all allowed to be accepted because this is the one now suspect category in this country, and it's absolutely shameful that this is allowed to continue in this way. But there's a reason for it, and we should be very clear. The notion that Islam is connected to violence is a new, modern notion. Before 9/11, this was not the way that Islam was understood anywhere in the world. It became a popular became a popular ideology, especially given what the United States needed in a particular kind of military campaign, which now we know had nothing to do with anything. The bombing of Afghanistan had nothing to do with anything related to the events of 9/11. The invasion of Iraq had nothing to do with anything about weapons of mass destruction. The only alibi that the U.S. imperial project has left is the one that Muslims do bad things when left to themselves. I mean, this is what this ad represents, right? Muslims cannot be trusted. Muslims will do awful things to minorities. Muslims hate their women. Muslims hate their gays. This is the script of Islamophobia, if you will. And the really scary part is that we will continue to have restrictions on civil liberties, restrictions on our abilities to act as equal citizens in this country as long as that Islamophobia continues. But even more frightening is the way that the persistence of Islamophobia is now being used to justify things that 10 years ago we would have thought were unimaginable. What are the drone strikes in Afghanistan and Pakistan but the worst kind of a state-sponsored murder? They know that they're killing more civilians than they're killing militants. They know this, and they continue to do it because Islamophobia allows them to get away with these sorts of things. The Daily Texan has a whole lot to be accountable for this ad. This ad came out in 20 newspapers all across the country. It was part of a coordinated campaign by Horowitz and his like to make sure that the conversation about Islamophobia happens in one direction and one direction only. But this campaign has been repeated in different iterations. You think about the ad campaigns on the buses and the subways in New York and San Francisco about jihad and the way that that term has been sensationalized over the 10 years. It's time we really began to take this seriously as students who care about things like equality, justice, fairness, and an end to racism. Last year, you might remember, there was a bomb threat on this campus, and the one piece of evidence that leaked about the bomb threat was Middle Eastern-sounding accent, whatever the hell that means. The way that Islamophobia now has become the go-to alibi when you need to do bad things to people is absolutely vile, and this is what the Daily Texan represents. They will hide behind a veneer of free speech. This has nothing to do with free speech. That's right. It has absolutely nothing to do with free speech. And the real question is, why a similar ad that said something about African Americans, a similar ad that said something about Jews, a similar ad that said something about Latinos, we would all understand that that was an outrage. But you look out around this campus and you understand just how deep the Islamophobia actually runs. It is limited to small groups of people who understand what this racist ideology is and how to combat it. I think it's important that we begin a conversation, not just here, but all throughout this campus, about why, as long as Islamophobia is allowed to continue, it's going to mean bad things, not simply for Muslims, not simply for people who look like Muslims, but for the entire country. It impoverishes not just our intellects, but it impoverishes our lives that this stuff is allowed to persist and continue. I want to thank all of you for being out here. I think it's very important that we raise our voices, but it's important to understand that this is a contextual phenomenon, that this is not happening in isolation. It has been the project of American imperialism in the Middle East that is now having blowback at home as people who look like Muslims, people who are Muslims, are subjugated to this kind of vile racism. And the Daily Texan owes a whole lot of people a whole lot of explanation and apology for publishing and printing filth like this. Thanks.
Hey, hey! Ho, ho! Islamophobia's got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! Islamophobia's got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! Islamophobia's got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! Islamophobia's got to go!
TSM, no more hate. You should set the record straight.
TSM, no more hate. You should set the record straight.
Daily Texan, no more hate. You should set the record straight.
Daily Texan, no more hate. You should set the record straight.
TSM, no more hate. You should set the record straight.
TSM, no more hate. You should set the record straight.
I want to thank Dr. Shingavi for that great talk. Now we have another student speaker, Joshua Tang. He's with the Multicultural Engagement Center here at the university. He's worked a lot on the issue of racism on this campus, so I want to invite him real warmly. Thanks a lot, Josh.
Thank you, Seth, for inviting me to come speak. Seth and I have been dear friends for the last 8 years, so it's a pleasure to work with you on this. I'm here to follow up on some of the remarks given by Dr. Shingavi, connecting Monday's terrible, atrocious, and disgusting advertisement to the racism that has faced people of color on this campus since its inception. You know, the University of Texas at Austin has been on the wrong side of history far too many times because of the many levels of racism that the institution and those affiliated with it have demonstrated. A stroll through the South Mall on this university is look upon the who's who of slave owners, including folks such as George Washington and Jefferson Davis. Robert Lee Moore Hall bears the name of a professor who refused to teach if blacks or other people of color were present in his class. Painter Hall bears the name of a president of this university who fought all the way to the Supreme Court to ensure that blacks could not attend the University of Texas at Austin. Students, too, have been part of this school's racist legacy. Cassandra Wright, as you may remember, former president of the College Republicans, tweeted in 2011, quote, "My president is black, he snorts a lot of crack." There are reports that black women were harassed and spat upon during one year's roundup, and very recently, many students, including myself, have stood up for ourselves and demanded a stop to the bleach bombings that have occurred far too often in West Campus, finally getting some attention. On top of that, last year saw the Daily Texan publish a cartoon that belittled the importance of the Trayvon Martin case and sent a deeply racist message to the university. And here we are again, once again protesting what has happened on the pages of the Daily Texan. Monday's Texan has done the same, and this time, even while members of the Daily Texan have objected, they spread a message of hate with a deeply Islamophobic advertisement. Monday's advertisement is not acceptable and has demonstrated once again that poor students, students of color, queer students, and our Muslim brothers and sisters are the constant target of bigotry and hatred on this campus. We are all here to learn and make a positive contribution in our lives and in our communities. However, instances like Monday's are a strong reminder of the extra tax that we must all pay if we strive to reach our goals. We cannot sit idly by as our persons and our communities are attacked. We will stand in solidarity and demand action from all responsible to prevent these issues from happening in the future. Many of us have been patient. We have spoken diplomatically with the university, and we've supported this institution even when it was unpopular to do so. We now ask that the university stand up for us. The tokenism that we've been greeted with, the rewards that reflect that only a few minorities can be successful on this campus, simply don't cut it anymore. It is exhausting having to pay the tax for preventing racism, sexism, Islamophobia, and so on, as we strive to be the best scholars and produce the best scholarship that we possibly can. This issue is not only related to racism and hatred against students, but also the pressure that's being put on our ethnic studies centers, the fact that the Center for Asian American Studies is only one step away from being completely abolished at this university. This struggle is felt among undergraduates, graduate students, and professors alike, and will continue to pull the University of Texas at Austin in the right direction. This occasion reminds me of Dr. King's words, who told us that the arc of the moral universe is long. However, it bends towards justice. And justice is why we are here. That's what we'll continue to fight for. Let us stand together in opposition not only to Monday's advertisement, but all the forums that the University of Texas has participated in. It's a struggle that is exhausting, but we will prevail. Thank you for listening, and I'm so glad that y'all are here.